Alright, this is part 2 in the series of videos showing you how to make an Asteroids game. In this section we will get our ship to simply move as shown here on the screen. Our ship will be able to turn left and right as shown and thrust. Now at the end of the video we will not have the little blue trail there, but he will be able to move around as such like he is floating around in space. He also by the end of this video, he won't be able to wrap screen yet. We're going to do that in a subsequent video. Okay, the first thing we have to do is we have to create a sprite for our ship, and then we will create an object for it to do that. So to create a sprite, again, if you don't remember, to create a sprite, you just right-click on where it says sprites here and go create. And I'm going to slide these windows on the side shut here to give us a little more room here. If you want to do it really quick, there's a button right there that kind of collapses those menus so you can see a lot more area here, and then you can just grab the windows here and move it around. You can also, with the middle mouse button, you can click in an open area and press down the middle mouse button and move your windows around. Also, to zoom in, you can hold the control key down and slide the wheel, and it'll zoom in wherever you need to, and so you can move things around to kind of make things easier to see. So I will be doing that a lot so you guys can see it on the screen here. Alright, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a name. The naming convention I typically use is SPR for sprites, and then I'm going to give it the name just ship. Again, in this case, in a lot of GameMaker programs, this is kind of arbitrary and you don't refer to it much, or you use pull down menus, but when you use GameMaker language, you need to make sure you have spelled this and you remember how to spell it. So make sure it is something logical that you will remember. It makes your typing much easier. Okay, so we're going to import an image. Now, if you are watching on YouTube or stream, there will be a link in the description to all of these images. If you're in my class, these images should be in a folder in your class folder. So if you look here, you'll see I've got a folder here called Project Asteroids. That's the folder that contains all the assets we need for this game. So I'm going to go and pick this ship PNG, that guy right there, pick him, click open. Now we've got a problem here because we need this sprite facing to the right. In GameMaker, the reason we want them facing to the right is because, as shown in this little diagram here, right is the direction of 0. Okay, now when you turn your ship here, you'll see that the direction he's turned, the number gets larger as he goes to the left, all the way around to 360, and as you go backwards, the number gets smaller. Okay, so we want to have a starting position which is facing straight to the right. That's why we need a sprite that's facing to the right. So to do that, we just go to Edit Image right here, and then you go to Image up here, and we want this thing rotated clockwise 90 degrees. So now he is facing to the right and we are aces. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and close this right there to get back to, and I need to get back to our sprite screen, so just open this and double click on sprite right there, sprite ship right there to open this back up. And let me open everything back up here a little bit again, and I'll zoom in just slightly so you can see this a little bit better. Okay, first thing we need to do, we need to get this thing centered. So I'm going to click where it says top left here. I'm going to change that from top left to middle center. So now you see our crosshairs right in the middle. The other thing we need to do is we need to change the collision mask so that it matches the shape here. If you click here, you can see what this is what the computer sees. This box here. So as you can see, if this guy gets hit by a bullet in this area right here, it'll register as a hit to the computer, and your guy will die when he didn't deserve to. So what we're going to do is we're going to change this collision mask so it matches the shape of the ship exactly. And the way you do that is over here for collision mask. You click that, and you leave this part to automatic, but instead of being rectangle here, you change it to precise per frame. And see, you can see now it has changed the shape of that collision, the collision shape, the collision mask to exactly match our ship. So if you've brought in another ship or you've put in your own ship, this will ensure that your ship only gets damaged if it actually gets hit. All right. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close this. We are done with this. Let me just confirm. Okay, yeah, it is middle center, so we're good. So I'm going to go ahead and close out that guy. Now we're going to make an object for the ship. And again, you can either click here to open up those windows, or if you don't need them all open, you just need the one side open, you can just click right there. So I'm going to go to now Objects, right click and create. And just like before, I'm going to zoom in here so you can see. And I'm going to give it the name Object Ship. Okay. And right here I'm going to set is sprite to our ship sprite. It's the only one we got. Now this is where you're going to see the difference between the drag and drop version and the GameMaker version. Up to now everything has looked the same here, but at this point it will change here. If I click Add Event, what we want to do for this guy is we want to set some variables at the beginning that'll tell how fast he will turn, how fast he'll accelerate, what his maximum speed is, that sort of thing. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go Add Event and then Create, and you'll see this window now pops up. And you notice there is no buttons on the right hand side anymore. We have to type in all of our commands. Okay, I'm going to resize some of these windows to give myself a little more room here so you can see a little bit better. Now make sure that when you type things, if I type them please exactly the way I type them. GameMaker and most programming languages are very unforgiving with spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes and that sort of thing. So it's very important that whatever I type, you type it exactly. Okay, so let me zoom in. I'm going to move over here so we can see this a little bit better here. Now I'm going to show you something right here. Notice how it says insert description here, and then right here it also says insert description here. What this is for, this top line, when you have three slashes and then the word @description, you can insert a description here that will kind of tell you what is going to be in what's going to be in this block of code. So it can, if you need to go back and change something, it makes it easier to find code that you've done for before. So I'm going to go here and go set variables. Okay, and erase everything else there, and then I'm going to start setting variables. So well, actually the first thing I need to do is in GameMaker, if you do random things, you know, if you have like random, for instance, we're going to have this guy facing in a random direction. If you want him to be in a random direction every time, you have to put this command in there in order to give it, there's like a key, they call it a seed, that is used to generate random numbers. And what this does, I'm sorry, let me respell this, randomize, and then this open and close parentheses here. What this does is resets that seed, so every time you play the game, the random numbers come up differently. Alright, so first thing we want to do is we want to tell it how fast we want it to turn. So I'm going to set it to 3, and again, all of these numbers, the reason I'm putting them in the create event is so that I can quickly come back and change them if I don't like them. So this is turn equals 3. This means every step he's going to, if I have the left or right key pressed or the A and D key pressed, he will turn 3 degrees every step. Okay. And then I'm going to set a variable called Excel equals 0.1. Actually, I'm going to reduce that. 0.05. This means every step that the forward button is pressed, whether it's be W or the up arrow key, his speed will increase by 0.05. You cannot have this too high of a number because otherwise his speed will increase too fast. If you saved, if for instance this was 1, after 1 second his speed would be 60. which if you're familiar at all with GameMaker is way too fast. Okay, and then I'm going to set a variable called max speed, and we're going to set that, I'll set that to 20. So this is as fast as he can go on the screen, 20 pixels per step, which is pretty fast. Okay, now, up to now, all these variables that I've created, these have been variables that I've created. Notice I've capitalized the first letter in this. This kind of is what I use to let me know that this is a variable that I created. It's a quick identifier. Typically, variables are all lowercase, all the built-in variables are lowercase. So these are ones that I made. Now I have to make sure that every time I refer to this, I spell it exactly the same way, including the capitalization. So it's important that when you make these, you do not have to use these words like I did, but if you, whatever you use, you have to remember what you did and use that consistently. Okay, so the next thing here we're going to do is we're going to have our ship going in a random direction. So I'm going to type in direction. This is the built-in variable that controls which direction the ship travels. And we're going to set it to, we want it to be random. And then I want it to be able to point in randomly any direction. So there's 360 degrees in a circle. So that's what I'm using here. And then I'm going to set another variable called facing, and I'm gonna, when the game starts, I want the ship to be facing in whatever direction it is. Now facing is different than direction. You know, the ship could be moving straight to the right but be facing up. So it in space you're not necessarily pointing the direction that you're traveling. So that's what that is for. Okay, so one thing to note about these lines of code here. Typically it's good practice to put one command on each line here. Now some programming languages require that, some do not. GameMaker is fairly forgiving in terms of how you lay out your commands here, but most programming languages would require a semicolon like this to tell the computer that, hey, this command is done. GameMaker does not require it, but I want you to get in the habit of doing it, so please include them in here. Okay, so we're set up with our variables set up. Okay, so now we're going to get our guy to move left and right. Okay, we're going to do is I'm going to use A and D to turn left and right. So I'm going to use A for left and D for right. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to click add event, and I'm going to go key down because I want to be able to just hold down that key and make him turn. I don't want to have to keep tapping the key, so I'm going to go key down, letters A. Okay, and again let me zoom in here so we can see what's going on here, and again for a description here I'm going to change this to turn left, and you'll see on the side, once I do that, you will see that that will change. So now it says turn left here. So that makes it, again, if I need to go back and change something, it makes it a little bit easier. So the way I'm going to make turn going, remember facing is the variable that I created that controls which direction the ship is actually facing. Not the direction it's traveling, but which the way it is turned. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make facing, and I'm going to add how much we said it was going to turn every step. Sorry, I'm programming that wrong. Plus equals turn. So what this command does is says, okay, I want to make facing, I'm changing facing, that's why it's on this side, and I'm going plus equals turn, which means I'm going to add the value of turn to facing. So if I go to create here and I see facing, let's say facing is 45 when the game starts, just happened, and I see turn is 3. So after one step, facing will now be 48, and you just increase that every step and he'll start turning. And once we get this in, we'll put the ship in there and you can see what's happening here. And then, okay, so now if we're adding turn to make him turn left, then really simply we can just duplicate this event. So you just right click on it, go duplicate event, key down, letters, and this time we're going to use D. And zoom in here, and we just make a few changes here. Make sure this is highlighted here, and I change this left to right. And I change the minus here, or the plus here, to a minus. So now I'm subtracting 3 from facing every time that key is down. And what we want to do now is we want to put the ship in the room and just make sure it works. So just click, if this is, you need to expand this, go ahead and do that. And just double click on the room. And all you need to do is you can just click on the ship here and drag him into the room. Oh, I got to have the layer selected. So right here, make sure you've got a layer selected right there, and then do it. There, it works like magic. So now we can test it, make sure it works. So go ahead and hit the run button up here, this little arrow, and it does all its moving and shaking down there. And okay, so now I click here, and lo and behold, nothing's happening. Well, I can assure you something is happening. The ship is turning. The problem is we haven't told the sprite to turn with it. So that's what we have to do. So go ahead and close this. So that's our next step. In the step event, we're going to put a little bit of simple code here. So just double click on ship here. It'll take you back to the code here. We're going to add a step event. Let me open all this stuff up here so we can see a little bit better. So we go add event, step, step. And the code that we're going to put here is real simple. Let me change this. We're just going to put here turn sprite. Get rid of everything else here. Go down to the next line. And all we're going to do is we're going to adjust a variable called image underscore angle. What this does, this is a built-in variable that controls the angle that the sprite is turned. So we want the image angle to be the same as wherever we are facing. So that's what I'm going to use for that, and put a semicolon at the end. So image angle equals facing. So now let's try it and see if that now works. There we go. Now he turns kind of fast, so after testing the game I may want to adjust how fast he turns. You see if I press the W key or the S key, nothing happens. Okay, so that's the next step. We're going to get him to go forward and then break backwards. Okay, so the event I'm going to use to go forward is going to be, in my case, it's going to be the W key. So I go to key down, letters, W, and I'm going to call this, oh, come on, it's not, there we go. We're going to set our variable, or we're going to set the description here to thrusting. And this is also a very simple code, but it just needs a little explaining. So we're going to use a function called motion add. And what this does is it doesn't necessarily set the direction and speed, it just sets the direction and speed that you're going to push this ship. So if we go to motion add, and we need, and one thing to note down here, whenever you're typing this code down here, if you do a function like this, you'll notice that down at the bottom you'll see it shows the function here, and then after the parenthesis there you will see this dir comma speed. Now right now the dir is highlighted. That means it's now asking for a direction. What is the direction you want to push this thing? So I want to push it in whatever direction it's facing, and then I put the comma, and now you see that speed is lighting up. That means now how fast do I want it to be pushed, or how hard do I want it to be pushed? That's our Excel variable. This is the one we created again in the create event. Right here you see Excel equals 0.05. So every step that button is held down, it's going to push that ship in the direction it's facing with a force of 0.05 steps per pixels per step. And let me kind of illustrate what is going on here. Well, actually, let's just test it now, and we'll see how it works. And it can take a little time getting used to. You see I'm turning okay, and then when I go forward there, but you see I can turn around and I'm still heading in the same direction I was. And then see when I move, if I change directions and start going in that direction, I don't instantly change in that direction. I have to overcome the force that I'm already doing. Okay, the direction and speed that I'm already traveling, I've got to overcome that before I can move again. Okay. All right, and a quick demonstration of kind of a diagram of what's going on here. If we look here, if I look at this guy here, you'll see if he moves, you'll see this is the orange number is the direction he's facing. The blue number is the direction he's traveling in. So now if I stop and I start, it'll instantly go to whatever direction I was. But you notice if I go in a different direction here, it's got, you see my direction takes a while to get back to the direction I need to go. See, the ship's got to overcome its momentum and everything. That's what's happening here. Okay? All right. So now the only thing we need to do now is do the braking thrusters. And again, it's very similar to this. So you just, we're going to just duplicate this. So again, I come over here and I just right click and go duplicate event. This time it's going to be key down, letters S. And zoom in here and see, make sure this is highlighted here, and we're going to change from thrusting to braking. Oops. And then the only difference in the code here is going to be, instead of being pushed forward, we're going to make this accel a negative accel. So now it's going to be pushing with a negative force. So if I test the game again, if I press the W key, I go forward, and if I press the S key, he'll back up. Okay. All right. All right, so in the next video we're going to add it so that he can wrap screen right now. Again, let me show you here. If he goes off the screen here, he is lost, and sometimes you can get him back, but see, if I shoot off the screen there, getting him back is almost impossible. So we're going to, in the next video, we'll show you how to make him wrap screen.